Welcome back. In this video, we're going to start creating our project, and you're going to start with section 1 of our layout, which is the Navbar. So on the Navbar, we have a logo, which is also known as the Nav brand, and then we have the menus, and here we have a button with a phone number. So let's get started and create something similar like what we have on the layout. So inside the project, I'm going to create a file called index.html. And then I'm going to add HTML starter code using emmet. So you're going to do a few things on this file. The first one is to make sure that you're using the correct viewport, and then you're going to add the title and then link it with that style sheet and also add the JavaScript. So let's start with the viewport, and you're going to check it from the Bootstrap documentation. So here on the introduction, we have something we call the starter template. It says be sure to have your pages set up with the latest design and development standards. That means using an HTML5 doc type and including a viewport meta tag for proper responsive behaviors. Put it all together and your pages should look like this. So here we're going to copy the viewport meta tag and then replace with what we have here on the file. So let's add the title, and I'm going to write Learning Bootstrap version 5 with SASS. Then we need also now to link the style sheet. So we have the link and then assets folder, CSS, and then style.css. Then from there, we're going to link the JavaScript. And here from the documentation, you have two options. The first option is by using the Bootstrap bundle, which has the popper. And the second option is by using them as separate files. That is the popper and the Bootstrap JavaScript. So here again, you have the option to either link them using the CDN or downloading the source files. I've already downloaded the source files and I have them in my project. So we have the assets, and then we have this folder called JS. So I'm going to link that file using the Bootstrap bundle.js. So below the end of the body, I'm going to add the script. So we have the source. So we have the assets folder. And then the JS, and then I'm going to link it with the Bootstrap bundle.js. So I'm going to save the file. So the starter template is ready. We can go ahead and create the navbar. So I'm going to start with a comment. So we have the start, the navbar section. So to save time, I'm going to copy the code from the Bootstrap documentation. So here I'm going to go to components, and then down here we have the navbar. So here I'm going to scroll down till I find the version that I want. So I'm going to copy this code, and then I'm going to paste. So you can see now here we have a class called container fluid. So in Bootstrap version 5, a container must be within the navbar. And you have the option to either use the container fluid class or the container class. So I'm going to use the container class. So I'm going to save that, and then you're going to see this page on our browser. So I'm going to go live, and here we have the navbar. So we need to change the color. So I'm going to change from BG light to BG primary. So there you have it. So before we style the navbar, we need to do a few things on it. The first one is to add the logo, and then push these menus to the right, and then make sure that the menus reflect what we have here on the layout. So here we are going to start by pushing the menus to the right, and here I'm going to add a class called justify content end. So I'm going to add that class where we have the collapse class. So we have that class, and then you're going to add the logo on the nav brand. So you're going to use an image, and here I'm going to create a folder called images. So you're going to keep that logo inside that folder. So we have the images and then the name of that logo, which is logo.png. And then we have the alt, which is the logo image. So let's create that folder. So inside the project, we have the images. Then inside my project folder, I'm going to copy that logo to my project or to that folder. So I'm going to drag inside my project folder. And then I'm going also to drag it to that folder. So we can see the results so far on the browser. And there you have it. You can see the logo, and then the menus have been pushed to the right. So we need to make sure that they reflect what we have on the layout. So we have the home, services, testimonials, frequently asked question, portfolio, contact, and then the button. So we have the second menu, which is the services. We have the third one, testimonials. So I'm going to duplicate the third one 3 times. So we have the frequently asked question, we have portfolio, and then we have contact, and then we have that button. So I'm going to remove this one, the disabled link. So here, before we do that, we're going to add the button at the end. So we have the button. The type of the button is button. And then we have the class for that button. So for now, we're going to use rounded pill to give it that rounded shape. We're going to add our own class. And then here we're going to add the telephone number. So we have the +1 and then 028365413. Save. Let's see the results so far. So there you have it. Now we can start styling. So here we're going to do the styling on the SASS file for this section, which is the navbar.sss. So I'm going to open that file, and then here I'm going to create a new class which you're going to add to the navbar. I'm going to call this class menu. So on the menu, we're going to create a gradient background. So if you check here from the layout, you can see we have a gradient, and these are 2 colors. We have the primary on the left, that is our primary color, and then on the right we have that secondary color or the secondary variable. So let's create that gradient. So we have the background, and then I'm going to use linear gradient. So here we need to specify the direction of the color. So we're going to say to right, and then we're going to use RGBA. So we have our first color, which is the primary, with an opacity of 0.95. Then we need the second color, again RGBA, which is our secondary color, with an opacity of 0.95. I'm going to save the file, make sure a script is running, and then add this class to the navbar. So I'm going to remove the BG primary and replace with that menu class. So I'm going to save. Let's see the results on the browser. So what you're getting is an error for undefined variable. And that is because the SASS cannot be able to get the modules with the variables. So to use mixins or variables of these modules, we have to call them using namespaces. And by default, the namespace is the file name without the extension. So here on the navbar, we need to call that module, which is the custom.scss file. So this is the module which has all the variables, mixins, and the bootstrap. So here we have the use at rule, and then we need to go back to directories. So we have the 2 dots, and then we have the custom. So here we need to use the namespace, and you have 2 options. You can either use it as custom or just plain C. So you're going to use it as custom, and then close that, and then I'm going to save. Let's see from the browser. So still you're getting an error. So to fix that, we need to remove the namespace. So here you're not going to use it with a namespace, so you're going to use it as a star. So the star tells us to remove the namespaces. So I'm going to save. Let's see. And there you have it. You can see now it is working. So let's continue styling. So we need to add the color and do some padding on the menu items or the nav items. So here we're going to nest it. So we have the li. We're going to do some padding. So for the top and bottom, you're going to put 0, and then left and right 0.7 rem. Save. Let's see. And there you have it. You can see now we have some padding on the nav items. So let's change the color to white. So we have the links. So we have the color. So here we need to put white, and then some text transform to capitalize, and then some font weight. We're going to have 600. So save. Let's see. So you can see the menus are bold, but the colors has not changed. So here we're going to fix that with the important. So we have the important on the color. So I'm going to save, and there you have it. So let's create a mixin for this gradient, because you're going to reuse it so many times. So I'm going to open that component, which is the mixin.scss file. So here you're going to copy this gradient. So first let's create that mixin. So we have the gradient mixin. So that is a comment. So we have the at mixin, and the name of that mixin, you're going to call it gradient. So let's copy that background gradient. So I'm going to cut, and then here we're going to include it, and then the name of that mixin is gradient. So let's copy that gradient to the mixin. So I'm going to save the 2 files. So our gradient should remain intact, or our navbar. So here we're getting an error for undefined mixin. So here on the mixin, we need to include that module. So just like we did with the navbar, we need to include that module, which is the custom.scss file. So it should be at the top. So we're going to paste and then save. Let's see. So still you're getting an error for undefined mixin this time. So we need to also include that module on the navbar. So the mixin component. So again, we have the use at rule, and then we have, we have the components and then the mixins. So again, use it as star. Close, save, check on the browser, and there you have it. So with that mixins, now we can be able to reuse it everywhere we want to use that gradient. So the next step now is to work on the button, and we need to create something similar like what we have here on the layout. So we're going to do that on the SASS file for that component, which is the buttons.scss. So here I'm going to create a new class which is going to style that button, and I'm going to call it btn rounded. So I'm going to start by setting the position to relative, and then some padding. For the top and bottom, we are going to set that to 0.9375 rem, and then left and right 1.25 rem. Then some font weight, I'm going to set that to 500, and then margin, I'm going to set that to 0. I'm going to save, then add that class to the button. So we have the rounded pill and then btn rounded. So save, let's see from the browser, and there you have it. So we need to remove this dark border and replace that with a white border, and then add this rounded circle which has this icon. So here we're going to put that icon inside a span. So I'm going to create a span, and then on the buttons we are going to nest it the way we've done. So we have the span inside the btn rounded span. So here I'm going to start by setting the position to absolute, and then background color of that rounded circle, which is going to be primary. Then we need to set the width and the height of that rounded circle. So we're going to use 2.5 rem. We can change that if it's too large or too small. And then also for the height, 2.5 rem. So then from there we're going to add the module. The way we've done here on the navbar, we need to include this module. So I'm going to copy. So remember here we have used this variable, so we need to add it there and then save. Let's see from the browser. So you can see now we have a span, but that is not the position that we want it. We want it inside the button. So let's first change the border and then give it that position. So for the border, we are going to set the border so width 0.1 rem, solid, and then the color we're going to use RGBA, which you're going to set that to white with an opacity of 0.6. Then we need to position this span. So this one should be closed with a semicolon. So for the top, set that to 50%, right 5px. Then we need to translate y, that is transform translate y minus 50%. So I'm going to save. Let's see. So you can see now at least we have it on the position that you want, but we need to make sure that it's rounded and then do some padding on the btn rounded. So for the span, you're going to set the border radius to 50%. And then on the button, so this one should be 2.5 rem. So you're going to set the padding for individual side. So for the top, you're going to leave it that to 0.9375, and then left 4.375 rem, and then for the bottom 0.9375 rem, the same with the top, and then the other one we're going to leave it at 1.25 rem. So I'm going to save. Let's see, and there you have it. That is our button. So now from there we're going to add the font icon, and here we're going to use the font awesome icons. So on the HTML we're going to add that icon inside the span. So we have the icon and then the class font awesome solid, and then the name of that icon is font alt. So here you're going to compile the font awesome SASS file so that you can be able to link that style sheet on the head section. So inside the SSS folder, I'm going to create that SASS file. So I'm going to call it font awesome.sss. So here you're going to import 4 files. So we have the first one. So we have the user role, and then the node modules, font awesome, and then SSS. So you're going to start with the brands. That is the font awesome for the brands. And then close, duplicate 3 times. So the second one we're going to import the regular. And then we have the third one, which is the font awesome.sss. And then finally we have the solid. So I'm going to save. And then here you can see it has already compiled our font awesome.css. So we need to link that style sheet to the head section. So we have the link, and then assets, CSS, and then font awesome.css. So from there now we're going to copy the web fonts to our assets folder. And the web fonts can be found inside the node modules. So we're going to copy them from the font awesome folder. So here we have that folder. So I'm going to copy it to the assets folder. So paste. So now we'll be able to see our icon. So I'm going to the browser, and here you can see now we have that icon. So the next step now is to style that icon. So inside the buttons, we're going to nest it inside the span, just like we have done on the HTML. So we have the icon. So the color should be white. So we have the white variable. And then also we need to position it at the center. So here we're going just to define or specify the font size, or set the font size to 1 rem, and then also the line height. So we have the line height, which you're going to set that to 2.5 rem. So let's see, save, and there you have it. So you can see now it is at the center of that circle, and that is the position that we want it. So let's add the background color for this button to white. So on the BTN round, we are going to add that background color. So we have white. Save, let's see, and there you have it. So the next one now is to make sure that we create the Hoover effect, as you can see here from the layout. So once you hover, you'll see that gradient. So let's work on that. So here on the BTN round, we are going to create that hover. So we have the hover. So the background color. So here we're going to use the mixin. So we have to include it. So include gradient. Save, let's see. So we're getting an error for undefined mixin. So you need to include that module inside this file. So just like we did with the Navbar, I'm going to copy that module, copy, paste, and now you can see we have that hover with that gradient. So we need to change the color once you hover the button, and also this rounded circle. So on the hover, we need to set the color to white. So we have color, which is white. So I'm going to save. Let's see from the browser. So now you can see once you hover the button, the color turns to white. So now let's work on this circle. So we need a dark circle once you hover the button. So the span should be inside the hover. So we have the span, and then the background color. So here you're going to use RGBA, and you're going to use a dark color. So we have the black with an opacity of 0.6. So I'm going to save. Let's see. So if you hover now, you can see our circle turns to dark color, and that is exactly what we need. So if you check from the layout now, you can see the only thing we need to do is bolden the text. You can see our ones is a bit light, so we need to add to increase the font size, the font weight. So on the BTN round, we need to increase the font weight to around 600. Or let me have 700. Save. Let's see. And there you have it. So I think we are done with that part. So the next step now is to make sure that our Navbar is fully responsive across a variety of screen devices. And to do that, I'm going to right click and inspect elements. So this is how our Navbar looks like on Moto G4, and this is a device with a screen width of 360. So if we click here on the Navbar toggler, you can be able to reveal the menu. So first, let's change the color of this Navbar toggler to a light color. So here we have the class, which you're going to change from Navbar light to Navbar dark. So save, let's see. And there you have it. You can see now it has changed to that light color. So something else is we can even hide the button on small devices, and that is targeting devices with a screen width of 600 and below, or 575 and below. So to do that, we can either write the media query on the button where we have that BTN rounded. So Bootstrap has some of the mixins that you can use to create media queries. So here we can include that mixin at the top and only hide that button on small devices with a screen width of 600 and below. So we have the include that mixin. So the mixin is media breakpoint down. If you're targeting small devices, then you can write down. If you're targeting large devices, then you can say up. So down, and then the device we want to target is a small device, so you need to use the initials, which is SM, and then here we need to write what you want to do. So the properties, we're going to set the display to none. So display none. So I'm going to save. Let's see from the browser. So now if you click on the Navbar toggler, you can't be able to see the button on small devices with a screen device or screen width of 600 and below. So to confirm that, we need to open our compiled CSS, that is the style.css. I'm going to open to the side and see that media query. So here I'm going to search for that class, which is BTN rounded. So down here you can see that media query, it has already compiled. So media query max width 575.98 px, and you can see the display is set to none. So you can see here any device with a max width of 575, the display should be set to none, so it will not be able to display that button. So let me show you if you're targeting a large devices. So here we can change the media breakpoint to media breakpoint up. So save. Let's see the media query, and here you can see the media query has changed to minimum width of 576. So if you check again from the browser now, our button can be able to be seen on small devices, but on large devices, for example, let's go to a large device like an iPad Pro, and you can see now we can be able to see the button. So it depends on what you want to target. So again, here we need to change that to down because we only want the button to be displayed on large devices only. So here we're targeting a small device to display none. So I think we are now, our Navbar is fully responsive and everything is working perfectly fine.